States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, sound? Got it? Okay. All right, with that, good evening, everyone, and we'll call at this time this regular business meeting of the Stephenville City Council to order at 5:30 PM here on Tuesday, October the 6th, 2015, and welcome everyone tonight. We've got a fairly short agenda, but no less some important business to go through tonight. Before I get into the business, I just want to mention if the community keep Doug Savine and family in your prayers. He is with his wife in Arkansas with some recovery, successful recovery for some health issues she had, and so just want to reach out as why Doug's absent tonight. And then also one of our family, firefighter Chuck Elliott, his daughter continues in recovery, Michaela, and just want to lift her up in our thoughts and prayers, and just know that the Lord performed a miracle to help her survive the accident, and we just want to let you know that we're thinking about you, and just hope for a full and a quick recovery. So just want to mention that. All right, on a lighter note, we got some great things coming up in our community to celebrate the town. For many years now, we have celebrated our heritage with Bygone Days, and that's going to continue at the museum, going through some great events. But we also have a new event this year, Sundown on the Square. And if you're on camera, I'll do this for everybody.
There he goes.
How about that? They're calling it the first annual. It's going to be a great time down on the square, getting together and reliving some memories. And I think it's an example of how Stephenville is such a special place for us to get together. And then there's a concert later that evening. I think Russ has some input with that.
Promo material?
Yeah.
At 9 o'clock on Saturday night, there is a return visit from a Stephenville homeboy. Leroy Parnell and his brother Rob Parnell are going to be performing down at the Rec Hall, where it all began for them in their music careers 40 years ago. It's a hard thing for him. He's wanted to come back for a while, and everything just fell in place for them to come and perform. Tickets are available at the Rec Hall, and if you want to watch the barn burn down, come down to the Rec Hall on Saturday night.
All right. Here we go. So the citizens' general discussion is the first item on the agenda for tonight, and I'll just ask at this time if there's anyone that'd like to come forward and present anything for the council. Okay, I know we've got a guest here from Tarleton, Dr. Kyle McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, it's always a pleasure to come before the council and speak. And we've worked at the university to try to get before you on a quarterly basis to give you some updates about what's happening at the university with regard to construction that impacts the citizens of Stephenville and those that pass through our fair city. So I did have a bit of a presentation, and each of you have maps in front of you to talk about just a few things. This will look very similar to the presentation that Tom Inkler and I made to you in June of this year. This is just an update on many of those projects. So Jimmy, if you'd go ahead and advance that. Just a little bit on the university overall. We do have our 20th day head counts finalized with the state of Texas. The university overall does sit at over 12,000 students this year, very precisely. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it, John. 12,326. And the question is typically, what is that head count here in Stephenville? And we're at 8,800 students here in Stephenville and growing strong. We tried to slow down our growth this year, and our target was 3%. We ended up between 5 and 6%. The reason that is that our freshman numbers stayed flat, so we did stop our freshman growth. Fortunately, but unfortunately, we had a lot of things that we're doing to try to increase persistence and graduation rates. So the number of sophomores, juniors, and seniors that stayed with us persisted. They stayed at a greater rate and they graduated at a greater rate. So we grew because of those that stayed with us, and that bumped us up between 5 and 6%. So that's actually a very good thing and a metric that we try to improve on an annual basis. The regional economic impact is still $500 million from our study that we did a few years ago, last year, excuse me. And of course, you see our campuses there, and you're well aware of that. Just to review our 2-year construction projections, I wanted to make some quick comments about our 2017 student housing that's underway. There are the 2 projects that are very active. One is on the east side of Memorial Stadium, and the other one's closer to the center of campus at the corner of Lillian and Vanderbilt. The twin complex is known as Traditions, and then the other one, they're both marked number 1 on your map, and the other one's going to be the Honors Hall. Both of those projects are moving along, and ground is broken and foundations are going in at this point. The campus development plan for the university, as well as the Fort Worth master plan, are still under development and well underway. So there's some links there if you want to review those at your leisure. The Memorial Stadium rehab, as you all know, we announced last month that the Texas A&M University system approved for us to go forward and secure bonds to do the renovation on that stadium at a rate of $24 million. And we're in the process of looking at design and funding now for that particular project. We're hoping to have before May architectural firm in place for that particular project. And so that's where we are on the Memorial Stadium rehab project. Our academic buildings that we have from the latest legislative session are the Applied Sciences Building 1, which will be in Stephenville, and it will set just across the street from Westside Cemetery between Ferguson Hall and the Dairy Queen. That's where that building will sit. Things are moving forward for that particular one, as well as the Fort Worth building, which we won't start design work, or we won't begin on that project. Funding won't be released from the state or the A&M system until this time next year. What they've done is the 11 universities within the A&M system, there's so many projects, is that they've staggered us to keep facilities planning and construction sane during that period, so they can keep all of those projects in line. So we're staggered with all of our other sister institutions. We do have a $25 million utility infrastructure pedestrian mall project going on, where we're starting in the design process right now for Vanderbilt and Lillian Streets, where we'll come in and upgrade all of the wet, dry utilities, as well as stormwater drainage down Vanderbilt, especially where it's problematic on campus there, and then come back on top with pedestrian malls. If you've been on campus, you've seen some of those models in front of the current residence halls or the newer residence halls. And then 2 weeks ago, we broke ground out at the Agricultural Center on the Agricultural Field Machinery and Fabrication Center. So that project is underway now as well. And I've pointed these out. I have a slide, and that's why I gave you the map, so you could look at these and reference as we go along. There's some mid-sized projects that I wanted to mention and give you updates on. The administration building renovation is well underway and it should wrap up here in the next month. The Washington Street crosswalks Speaking a while ago with Mr. McClinton about those, the crosswalks at Lillian and Washington are probably the most used. The crosswalk at Harbin and Washington, I don't have a good feel for about the student count that's going across it, but do know that the signal lights are going up. We expect that the Felix crossing, when that happens, TxDOT has that. It's at 60% planning for them right now, and we feel that that will probably be the crosswalk that is most used when it is put in place. That's where students really want to cross. With regard to parking lots, people still make the claim that we don't have enough parking. Well, this time last year, we had 650 less spaces than we have right now. So we're adding spaces all the time, and our students that say that we don't have parking, we've had more than we've ever had. So that's something that we're very proud of, and we're working very hard to add parking as we can. The Alumni Island and pedestrian projects have wrapped up this summer, and completion projects are ongoing this fall and next spring. And as you know, the police station, well, our police station will move into the old West Side Fire Station that was sold to the university last year, and that project is in design as well. And then hopefully we will be in the process in the next couple of years of demolition on Davis Hall and Bender Hall. Davis Hall for sure. Bender Hall really depends upon what TxDOT does with the S-curve there at West Side Cemetery. As you all know, we've been actively seeking out parcels of land for individuals in town who are willing to sell on the fringe of campus. That process is ongoing, and we'll continue to reach out to landowners, property owners who wish to sell. We've acquired approximately 12 sites around campus, and have a few more that we're actively working on with System Real Estate right now. And all of that information about where the campus is growing to is in our 2020 campus development plan. And that's located online. So that was just a quick update. I wanted to take just a moment and say thank you to this council, say thank you to the team that works for the city for everything that you do for the university, and the cooperation and collaboration that we have, and the great relationship with the city. And I would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dr. McGregor? Alan?
Thank you for coming. Thank you for the update. It's always interesting when you drive by the campus and to see I'm gonna call it a beehive of activity, because there's so much going on there. It's not just students and that traffic, but there's a lot of other activity there. In y'all's conversation with TxDOT, do you have a feel for what they're gonna do with that S-curve? You mentioned the possibility of a couple of demolitions there. I know that y'all have been in contact with them over an extended period of time, and I didn't know if you had a feel yet for what they may try to do at that particular location.
We don't now. We have seen initial schematics on how they would straighten it, and what it would look like as a finished project, just as far as conceptual drawings. TxDOT is really driving that project. We stand ready to take down Bender Hall. Our hope is that we would get some assistance from TxDOT in the cost for demolition, but we're in agreement with TxDOT and as well as with the city when that project is ready to kick off.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Alan, I think with your question, it's probably appropriate with Kyle and Pat for us to unite forces and call Fort Worth District of TxDOT and invite them back again to give us a program update, because we know somebody in Fort Worth is working on this, and we're gonna have to pull information from them to get updates because they're not providing them to us. So I think that would be helpful for us all to know, what they're doing. So I think they were here a year ago, November. So maybe we could arrange that, kind of force the issue. Other questions?
I have one question, Mayor. Kyle, it looks like on the map here that there's proposed parking along Fry Street from the old fire station down to almost Cleveland. You know how many parking places are proposed in that lot?
Thank you for mentioning that, Russ. I appreciate it. I failed to mention on that particular slide that we have abandoned that parking lot. We will not be constructing it. To answer your question directly, it was approximately 100 to 120 spaces.
Thank you for abandoning that, because Fry and Harbin is one of our busiest intersections in town, a four-way stop, and that just didn't look good, so
Yeah.
very, very, very happy with that decision.
We did, that cut into some space that we thought twice about there, but really, that lot, we had proposed utilizing it for enterprise, an enterprise rental as well as university-owned vehicles. So traffic wouldn't be heavy coming in and out of that particular lot. It would be cyclical based upon cars coming in and going out for rental or service vehicles. But we've decided just to leave that as green space.
Thank you, that's good news.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
If I may take
Yep.
one more second, Mayor, I would like to invite you and the entire council, as you all know, in 2 weeks from now, Tarleton is having its 2015 homecoming. As a part of that, on Saturday morning in the parade, we would like to invite you to walk with President Dominic DeTavio. We have a wellness effort on the campus, and we're highlighting that this year at homecoming. And we'd like to invite all the council members, as well as the mayor, to walk along with the president that morning, and we'd love to have you. So if you would please consider this your formal invitation, and we'll follow up with each of you to see if you'd like to participate. So thank you very much.
All right, great, thank you. All right, any other general discussion? Okay, if not, we'll move to item 3 on the agenda, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission report. We've got one item to consider tonight, and I know Pat's been struggling with his voice all day, so Pat, go ahead.
This is the final plat for the Creekside Townhomes. The P&Z met and unanimously approved the final plat for these townhome addition. The planner developer is Trafalgar Homes of Texas. It's developed to be an R3 residential, which will allow the proposed residential use. Staff also recommends the approval. Mr. Hanson, the developer, is here to entertain questions that the council might have.
Okay, any questions from the council?
Mr. Hanson, were any changes made on this plat from the preliminary that we looked at a couple of weeks ago?
The final count got adjusted by 1. Looks like instead of 110 units on phase 1, we're going to do 111. Besides a lot of engineering and surveying, there wasn't any substantive changes between the submittals.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have
Okay.
one
All right,
question.
go ahead.
Back when it was in front of the P&Z, could you explain to the council, since we don't have sanitary sewer in that area, how you're spending money out of your own pocket to make this project happen until we can get the sewer lines to you?
Sure. We came to the city, and we've met with the city staff a number of times to try to come up with a plan on a way to do this. I'd requested financial assistance from the city. We actually went back and looked in the 1995 minutes when that area was annexed and found out that the minutes from that meeting said that there's utilities available in the area. And it turns out there's not. It did not work out to where there's budget right now for the city to lay out a lot of cash. So the suggestion was that we handle it either through the EDC, which would take several years, or to do a tax abatement application, which is pending. And so that's how you answer your question. We're prepared to front the money to do the sewer and the infrastructure, and then upon approval of the tax abatement, we'd recoup some of that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
Great, thank you.
And I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the final plat of Creekside Townhomes Edition as presented.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. McClinton to approve the final plat of Creekside Townhome Edition as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimous vote. We'll move on then to item 4, which is to consider approval of the bylaws of the Stephenville Type B Economic Development Authority. Pat, you want to give us an update there?
The CETA board has met on a couple of occasions, in using the boilerplate that our attorney Jeff Moore provided. They've gone in and scratched certain things, made additional recommendations to the bylaws, and the board approved these yesterday at their meeting to be sent to you all tonight for approval.
Okay, any questions for Pat then about the bylaws?
Yes, sir, I've got a couple of questions if I could.
Okay,
On page 1 of the bylaws, section 1, part C, no director or employee no director shall be an employee, officer, or member of the city council of the city. Does that apply to the executive director also?
Yes, yes.
Is that necessary to specifically enumerate that, or is that understood?
The executive director, it's on, in here, the executive director is gonna be an employee of the corporation, not of the city.
But in my mind, that does not prohibit him from being both, because it's not specifically prohibited. I apologize for the lateness of this, but we got this late this afternoon, and I didn't have time to get back with y'all. I'm not being argumentative, I'm just trying to ask for a question to make sure there's not gonna be an issue later with it, one way or the other.
so
Alan,
the-
it may be that the executive director is an ex officio board member, much like the mayor and mayor pro tem are, so they wouldn't fall under the same heading as board of directors as ex officios.
And if that's the case, then that sentence does not apply to him. If he's not a director, it does not apply. Something that might be worth investigating.
So Alan, what is your specific,
Well, it
Concern or question?
says that no director shall be an employee, officer, or member of the city council. Employee of the city is implied there, employee, officer, or member of the council. Does that also prohibit the executive director from being a member of the council or a city employee?
As long as he's not a director, I wouldn't think so. It just prohibits directors, doesn't it?
But the executive director sits in addition to the board of directors, in my understanding.
right,
And I don't know if that's a valid question or not.
Randy, do you have any thoughts on it?
Not many, I hadn't read this yet.
It's fresh off the press.
Yeah.
I bet Jeff Moore read it.
Yeah, he did. You can, the CETA can amend this if there's a problem. I see your point. And CETA has the power to, of course, they could appoint, under your theory, they could appoint some council member as executive director. They're not prohibited to do that.
And/or city employee.
Yeah, I understand your point, I just am not prepared to answer it, and I haven't, we need to go back and look at the certificate of formation and the other documents of formation, maybe something in there.
Well, and this has been a question of mine from the beginning, because I knew that it was intentional that council members and/or other city employees were not to be on the board of directors. But in my mind, there's a question about whether the executive director is a member of that board of directors, or if he oversees that.
No, the executive director is an ex officio member of the board.
That was my thought.
And does not have a vote, and does not, he or she answers to the board.
Correct.
and the board answers to the
All right,
council.
so I think that therein answers your question, Alan, and let's find that paragraph in here so that we can all be on the same page. Whoever can find it first, it talks about the board members,
Section 1B,
excuse me?
section 1C.
Section 1C is the one that raised the question in my mind.
No,
Something else.
the designation of the ex officio members.
That's not in there.
I did not see that in
That's
this
not in
document.
sheet.
Okay, it's in the certificate of
It's
formation.
in the certificate of formation, but not in this.
And the certificate of formation is the, what's the correct term, Randy? It's the
Controlling.
controlling
It's like the
document.
charter, it's like the charter of a regular corporation,
Right,
and then the bylaws, meat and bones of everyday
right.
activity.
I would think too, Alan, that the fact that the city council approves their actions, that's a check and balance that's built in place too, so that, you know, majority of the city council feel like there's, you know, an issue with an appointment that they want to make, then that's when it can be handled.
It's subject to our approval, yes,
Uh-huh.
but I don't want to spend their time unnecessarily trying to appoint someone that we might not approve for whatever reason.
Right, and so Alan, I think the point is that your concern is specifically addressed in the certificate of formation, and that the executive director is specifically mentioned as a ex officio, not as a director position, or as a,
Are the ex officio members prohibited from being members of the council and/or city staff?
No.
I don't believe they are.
no.
Ex officio
No.
members don't have a vote, though.
So again, I'm
Well, but
having a
it's
hard
not
time.
a question about the vote, it's a question about leadership, in my mind. Because who's the executive director is in charge of leading the corporation
Mhm.
through the board or with the board. And is the leadership gonna rest with, could the leadership rest with someone who is a city employee or council member? I don't think that was our intention when we formed this.
It's not.
And I don't, but it's not prohibited, so if it's not prohibited, then Randy will have to research this, because I can't answer it. But if it's not specifically prohibited, does it mean it's accepted? Or potentially possible, maybe that's the way to say it.
Why don't we look at approving this and making the contingent upon the adjustment prohibiting the director as such? Would that be possible?
It certainly would be.
Or contingent on Randy's investigation of it to see, and it may be,
Exactly.
it may be worded
Well,
perfectly.
If it's like you think, then we'd have to send it back to CETA also,
If-
because they have, these are their bylaws.
If we amend it, then they're gonna have to approve that amendment also, if I remember correctly.
But we can go ahead and approve this subject to, the executive director being prohibited from being a council member, employee of the city, and so forth and so on. And I'll research it, see what it's about, and we may, at that time, want to take it up again and send it back to CETA.
Okay.
For that, addition.
That's fine with me. I just thought it might be worth investigating before we approved it without even consideration of that. And maybe I'm having problems with something that's not there. It just is not clear
I
to
think
me.
you're having problems with something that's probably not gonna happen, but what you have stated, and nothing is correct, and nothing I can see here, makes it incorrect. I mean, so I think it's pays for us to check it, let's be sure.
Well, and if it's worth consideration, if you feel like it's
I
worth
think so.
consideration, that's fine. Okay,
I'll do whatever the council thinks, but yes, I do. I think it's worth looking at.
okay, thank you.
Mayor, we do have one member of the board of directors of CETA here. Could we ask her for her feedback on this?
Sure.
Because I don't see what Shelby, do you have the copy with you? If not, I've got one here.
I've got an electronic copy.
Right, got it underlined right there. I'm just having trouble seeing what the problem is, because it refers back to the
Well-
certificate of formation, which is the controlling.
I can tell you that we specifically discussed whether the director of CETA would be an employee of the city or an employee of the corporation. And there are provisions in the bylaws that state that that person, he or she, will be an employee of CETA. So that was specifically contemplated. Now, the director of CETA, as an ex officio director, wouldn't have a vote on the board, which I understand you also understand there. So if it's the pleasure of the council to clarify that that person is also not going to be a city employee, I think that's a pretty easy amendment for us to make, because I think that's a common understanding. I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I think in discussing that they would be a CETA employee, there's kind of an exclusivity there. So I think if it's desirable to make that change, I don't think that it is an issue.
Okay. Shelby, I guess, thank you for coming and answering. I guess my problem is, it is a common understanding among the group that's seated here now, and probably among the board that's seated now. 5 years from now, several of these faces will change, several of the board members may change. Will it be a common understanding with them also? And I'm not trying to create problems, but I'm trying to put something in that will be universally understood, no matter who is seated on these chairs or in y'all's board, either one. And as I said, I'm not trying to be argumentative, and I'm not trying to create problems, but I want everybody to be on and stay on the same page, maybe the best way to say it.
And so if I understand right, then the recommendation back to CETA would be to clarify that no director and the executive director shall not be an employee, officer, or member of the city council or the city.
That would clarify it for me 100%, if that's satisfactory with y'all, and unless Randy sees something in that would be an issue.
If the council's ready to send it back, there'd be nothing wrong with that. And that would be the quickest, fastest, and easiest way, even if there's something in the certificate of formation that covers it. Wouldn't be anything wrong with doing it that way.
Would we need to make a motion to table this and send it back, or make the motion to approve it subject to that change? What would?
Either way.
Whatever we can do to not slow them down. I
Right,
guess is what I
right,
would prefer.
exactly.
So, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, we need to be careful not to state overstate something, but to clarify this, as minor as it is, while we're doing it at the beginning is the best, because as the concrete sets up, it gets harder to
It gets more
to mold,
difficult to
so-
change, sure does.
Right, but, so the question then of the ability for CETA to function without a set of bylaws for the next 30 days, is that gonna encumber them in any way?
Let's go ahead and pass it, subject to my research, and that'll allow them to continue.
Next
Right.
meeting is October 15th for CETA also.
Right,
Mayor,
Yeah.
would the sentence in 1C, section 1C of the bylaws, if the sentence is added, the executive director shall not be a member of the city council or a city employee, will that meet the council's approval?
Yes, but we can't do it unless we send it back to CETA to approve first.
right. But I think, Pat, you're just wanting to clarify the language. Is that, seems adequate
Yes,
for
sir.
everyone?
That's not
Yeah.
the way to do it.
If,
Well, I'm not, we're not gonna do that. I'm just,
All right.
asking the question, I mean, Pat asked the question about the wording.
Yeah, and that
It's pretty
certainly
simple.
would cure it,
Right, so that was the question.
subject to CETA's approval.
Right, right. So, Randy, you were about to suggest that we approve as presented contingent upon, what were your words?
Yes, contingent upon really clarifying or being sure that the executive director is not, it's clear that the executive director cannot be a councilman, city employee, or whatever else it is named
Right.
here.
So I think we can, if the council's okay with that, we could go ahead and proceed with that, with the understanding that in 30 days, we'll have an adjustment, and we can handle that at that
Yes,
point.
and they can go ahead and operate. That
And they can
takes
go ahead
care
and
of your
operate.
concern.
Right.
Yes.
Is that okay with you, Alan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Shelby.
There may be other questions, but that was mine.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other questions?
I'd just like to make the comment that I appreciate people like Shelby serving on this board, and I commend you for the effort that y'all made on these bylaws. I think that they are more specifically in alignment with what CETA wanted. Me personally, I appreciate the fact that y'all did adjust the term limits. I think it's healthy, and hopefully it'll pave the way for our advisory boards and hopefully someday the council. So, thank you.
All right, any other questions of Pat or comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move approval of the bylaws of the Stephenville Type B Economic Development Authority with the one provision that Randy's going to determine if it needs to be altered or not, but with the rest of it intact.
Okay.
I think that leaves them room to operate, doesn't it?
Second?
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Nix, seconded by Mr. McClinton to approve the bylaws as presented, contingent on the review of paragraph, I guess I'll specifically say Article 2, Section 1, paragraph C. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimous vote. And I'd like to just echo Rhett's comments about thankful to the CETA board. When the group jumped in and in the first week scheduled 2 meetings because they said time is of the essence and we need to make sure that we're about doing the city's business. And I just couldn't congratulate them more for their willingness to do that. They're already in the process of, in the beginnings of hiring an executive director, or at least a search process, which will be the next big step, I guess, in their program. All right, with that, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Go ahead.
Boyd, was that a second?
No.
No? Okay, okay,
I decided I had to wait for a second before I raised the issue. I was gonna
okay.
raise.
Do I have a second?
I'll second so Boyd can step out.
Okay.
What do you want to pull off,
Mr.
Boyd?
McDaniel,
Paragraph, in the one for September, the first paragraph, part of paragraph 7.
so you want to pull the minutes from September 1st?
Well,
So A1?
Make a correction.
make a correction in paragraph 7 of the minutes of, or make a suggested correction in the minutes of September 1 in paragraph 7, and I can point that out at some time, whenever it's appropriate.
Okay, so why don't we do this? We'll approve the consent agenda with the exception of item A1, which is regular council meeting on September 1st, 2015. That motion by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Nix. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, so that consent agenda is approved. Now let's discuss the minutes from September 1st. And Boyd, you had what page?
Page 6,
Okay,
up towards the top, and this is, I'm not saying that this is a major deal, that's just, in my opinion, an accuracy question. And where it says that the budget reflects a reduction of $360,000. However, there are no reductions in services or programs, and I just don't think that's totally accurate. I'm not arguing that reductions weren't necessary, weren't appropriate, but they're I believe there were some reductions, however slight, and I think that is inaccurate. And it could be corrected by just eliminating there are no reductions in services or programs.
all right, well, Pat, you want to speak to that, or?
And I guess
So we need a motion
Okay.
to remove. However on,
from however
yes.
through programs.
To the and.
But new positions were added would stay intact?
Yeah, right.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So it's motion by Mr. Wagner, seconded by Mr. McDaniel to strike the words, there are no reductions in services or programs. Discussion? Do you have a specific example?
Yeah, I think there were some reductions in the services for the senior citizens, you know. But the budget was reduced some, and that caused them to reduce the services some. I'm not saying it's a major reduction, or I'm not saying it shouldn't have been done, but it was done, I think. And I think it's inaccurate to say that there were no reductions in services or programs when there were some. That's my observation.
Okay. Jeremy, you got any comments to that, or?
Okay, she's correct. I mean, whether you say, whether you like them or not, if you say like them or not, agree with them or not, there was some changes to services. That's the word I would use, changes. So,
I think what we looked at, Mayor and Council, was should the city be in the business, was it our responsibility to provide entertainment at the taxpayer's expense and other things? And that was something we took a hard look at to determine whether the city was responsible for providing entertainment to one certain segment of the community at the taxpayer's expense. And we didn't quite feel like that was the case, and so we didn't totally eliminate funding. There was some reduction in funding, but that's where that decision came from.
It's just, it says there were some reductions, and this says there were no reductions. And I'm not saying now that the decision shouldn't have been made. I'm just saying this is inaccurate to say there were
Right.
no reductions.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
The services
I
are
would
still
refer
in place,
to it as a
though. I mean,
reduction
far
in
as
funding,
the
not a
basic-
reduction in services.
yeah, the service is still in place. There was
Y'all
change,
scaled it down,
there was
right.
changes scaled down, and since we're kind of picking some words, not in a bad way, I'm just saying, he said we felt like there was some service, but we looked at other centers as well. I mean, so I surveyed, spent 2 days with my knee just sitting on the couch calling other centers. And what we've done is pretty close to what other centers have done. So it's not just we felt like it was. I mean, we looked at other centers as well, so.
Well, Boyd's still right in what he's saying.
Oh, no,
Whether
sure,
it was
I
a
agree.
reduction
So
in
I was just adding to it.
services,
He's right, so
Whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent.
Sure,
it was still a
absolutely.
reduction in services.
I agree.
Any other comments?
I would just like to say that our city administrator and staff did exactly what they were tasked to do in the budget, and it's a good budget, and I'll defend it and stand behind it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll proceed to vote then. All's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. So that approves the minutes from September 1st. Item A1 from the consent agenda. And comments from the city administrator.
Yeah, there will be we'll be interviewing for Planning and Building Services Director this Thursday. We've got 3 candidates that we'll be interviewing. That panel is Ms. Zachary, Ms. Lawson, Mr. Hanson, Chief King, Mr. Elliott, and myself. And we'll be interviewing those folks on Thursday, and hopefully at the next council meeting, we will have a good candidate to present to you for your approval. The Finance Committee will meet on October the 13th at 5:30 back in the council training room. And the CETA Board will meet October the 15th at 11:30. All meetings for the CETA Board will be at 11:30 unless otherwise noted.
Are those up to, CETA board member, meetings open to the public?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and anything else? All right, you want to mention the update you passed out, just so we know we've got it, what we've got?
Emailed this out to the council earlier today, and this is just enough the new programs and capital improvement projects in the upcoming budget, and this is just a status update. of where they currently are. And I will try to have something like this for you each month, just so you know, as we proceed through the year, what progress we've made on these council-approved issues.
This is what you emailed us, there's been no adjustment to that? Okay.
Okay, any questions about that list for Pat?
Mayor, I have a question. It's not about the list, but one of the things that we might want to mention, and I know Pat's voice is failing him, so I'll mention it if he doesn't care. We've got an electronics recycling event coming up. I think it's the 17th, if my memory is correct, at the MSC. I know that has been well received in the past, and a lot of citizens have electronic devices and equipment that they want to recycle, and this is the appropriate way to do that. One thing I did want to ask, is there a voucher or anything necessary for anyone to bring items to that?
There is none.
Okay, it's open to the public, and all you need to do you need an ID of some kind?
Yes, sir.
It's open to anybody?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I would like, I've got one question on the list. It says here that the professional services for street projects is waiting on results of pavement management plan. And I'd just like an explanation as to what the thought is there, or what the plan is. And I realize this is the first time to put the list together, but the second thing is the thoroughfare plan is not listed on here.
That was
And
in
that just
last
might be an
year's-
oversight.
That was in last year's budget.
Last year's,
And we are starting progress on that. We've already met, and the engineering firm is working on that.
okay. So Nick,
The professional services for the street project, we thought we would get the results of the pavement assessment, so we know where to start first, before we award that contract.
okay. So when do you anticipate getting the pavement management plan completed?
We'll have an update on that within 30 days. We'll have it finalized, I hope, within 60 days. We have the streets already driven at this point. They've been assessed. They're in the process of assigning those pavement condition indexes at this point.
Okay. So you think, and this is just rough, I realize, but is that in time to meet the construction season for street repairs for next year?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think we'll have plenty of time to do it much faster than what we're doing this year.
Right, okay. All right, great.
Repairs are still being continued though, right? Because I know last week I had some guys in front of my house doing
Well,
minor repairs.
yes, absolutely. All 7 guys in the street department are busy every single day. And
I'm sure they are.
yes, we are continuing the pothole and the patch repair and the drainage repairs every day. Now, I think what you're talking about is the contractual piece of that.
I understand.
Yes.
Nick, what is the main parking lot at the park that discussions with FEMA are occurring on?
During the storms, the main parking lot at the park, and Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to use the word destroyed,
Well,
but
I can understand the damage.
if
I'm
you've
just
driven-
wondering what
It's a
you're
good
calling
word.
the main parking lot. There's a lot of parking lots down there. Which one is the main parking lot?
help me out.
NYC Fields.
Okay.
Amphitheater.
NYC Fields and Amphitheater.
Okay,
The park is Mr. Allen's domain, so I don't want to speak for him
sure.
on what he's calling the main parking lot. But if
Right,
you've driven
okay.
through there, most people would agree with me, it's basically destroyed. We're working with FEMA now,
You come
both,
down to the amphitheater and it's the big parking lot to the left and the right?
I think you have to drive through it to get to the amphitheater, yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I needed to know.
We're looking at what they're calling a double chip seal to get that completely repaired.
You think we'll get any help from FEMA on it? I'm not gonna hold you to it.
I feel very confident that we will get some help from FEMA on it, yes.
Great. Excellent, thank you.
Both Mr. Allen and I have been working very diligently, all hours of the day and night, to work with Mr. Brooks with FEMA.
Thank you for that.
That's great.
You bet.
Yeah, the Kiwanis hosted the circus down there this week, and it gets a lot of use, so that's good to hear that we've got a plan in works there for that.
You don't have to worry about people speeding through there, do you?
All right, Pat, you got any other updates for the council? Okay, and we'll proceed for council member comments. And Mr. McClinton, Mark, you got anything?
Yeah, I frequently visit both the city park and the Bosque River Trail. My wife and I walk down there almost every evening, and over the summer, we've noticed steady progress being made and with some Martin houses being put up there. And so I asked Jeremy this evening what was going on with that, and he told me that that was an Eagle Scout project that somebody did, built the houses, brought them to the city. The city crews have been erecting those, and I just want to throw some kudos out to everybody involved with that. That is such a cool project, and to incorporate, some passive insect control at both the park and down by the river. I just think it's a great project, and Jeremy, pass it along. My thank you, my wife's thank you to everybody involved with that. The gentleman's name who had the Eagle Scout project was Nathan Miller. So I definitely want, if you run into Nathan Miller, tell that guy, way to go.
Yeah, that's great, thanks. Boyd?
This is probably repetitive, but I just want to say that I was really tickled about the quality of the people that agreed to serve on the Economic Development Board, I think. They're really some outstanding people, some good businessmen and women, and when I saw that list, I just thought this is probably gonna work, because there's some really good people on it, so I'm just happy that they did that, so.
Okay. Russ?
Mayor, I'd just like to let everyone know that there's a lot to do in Stephenville, Texas this Saturday. Call your friends up, invite them to come spend the day. It starts at the Historic Museum at 10, then on the square, and ends up down at the Rec Hall. So I'm excited about this Saturday, and I know we're going to have a really good turnout at all the events. Call your friends, invite them to come participate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Brett?
I have nothing.
Okay, Alan?
Just asking Russ if he's getting a commission from the ticket sales.
Full disclosure, ticket sales at the Leroy Parnell concert, I am getting 0 commission. I have pitched in some money to help sponsor it, because I'm 100% behind it. I think we need more activities that we can have our people attend and rally behind, and just have a chance to get together on.
Some of us are old enough, we remember Leroy when he was here from the very beginning, but
Yes.
thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Sherry? All right. Jerry?
Yep, first time. Back in mid-August, at Mr. Ross's request, I did an interview with the Empire Tribune. And gave him straightforward answers. Then sometime later, on social media, I was called dishonest by Russell Huffman. One conversation you'll probably recall, Ms. Zachary, Rhett, you, Mayor, and the Wallaces were in attendance, and I asked you if you had told Russell Huffman that I gave straight answers, and you said yes. He took it upon himself to print after that I was dishonest. Criticism comes with the job, but being called a liar, not so much.
You had every opportunity, sir.
You heckled me with.
You gave, I texted you, I emailed you, and I called you.
I had no obligation whatsoever to answer you, and I didn't, and that's why you got mad.
Okay, I tell you what, gentlemen,
Well,
in
okay,
in
Mayor, I know
respect.
what you're
Yes,
gonna
sir.
say. Shut it off.
Well,
And I'm good with that, but it wasn't me that lied. And I want that on the record. I don't do that.
all right.
fact, there's a old graded guy down there named Randy Thomas, and this lady here will vouch for my truthfulness, besides Boyd and a lot of other people in here. Anyway, that's all.
Okay. I got a couple of things I wanted to mention. First, I want to thank Pat Bridges and TxDOT. 2.5 years ago, I was driving through town and I said, I bet TxDOT wouldn't allow street signs like this to exist in Fort Worth. And I drove around in Fort Worth a week later, and sure enough, every street sign in that city was brand spanking, shiny, looking nice. Well, this week, after 2.5 years, those signs finally got replaced. So you go to the post office today, you can actually read Graham Street on the sign. Now, y'all may think that's a little thing, but to me, it reflects the pride in this community. If we're willing to settle for worn-out signs for the public in a center point of our town where you can't even read them, then that's not a reflection, a proper reflection of the pride that we have in our community. And some may say that little things don't matter. Well, I say they do. And I really appreciate the effort to make that happen. Pat, I really sincerely do, and I know that we had to make several phone calls, and you followed up to do that. And so I really appreciate that. The other thing that I just want to, I don't want to belabor Mr. Warren's point, but I want to say this, because I think that we as a community need to not lose sight of the great things and the way God is blessing us as a community every day. To not lose sight of the security, the safety that we have in this community, to not lose sight of the ability for us to enjoy where we live. As Dr. McGregor was saying about them being able to retain sophomores, juniors, and seniors, I was thinking, and we need to work hard to retain those graduates from Tarleton so that they can enjoy the lifestyle here that we have. It is so important for this council to stay focused on where we're going. And I really want to thank you for the work that we have done to have CETA in place and to have that as an opportunity for the future, and for us to keep the big ideas that we're working on in front of us. Things like the expansion of the airport, the East Side sewer that's underway, the thoroughfare plan, the pavement plan is going to fix streets, the annexation work that is really planning for the future that Rhett's been working on, and just the dialogue that the council's having. It is greatly appreciated, and your work is not for nothing. And so as we begin the new fiscal year for our community, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of that, and in a very positive way. And so with that, I will call us into executive session in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Law, in accordance with Section 551071A, consultation with attorney, pending or contemplated litigation. Thank you.
Mr. Warren, if your comments are true, we can write it again like a
Oh, here we go.
Russ, don't get me wrong.